Hey guys, Horror Lorekeeper here. Today we're tackling one of the saddest, most heavy characters in the whole FNAF lore. Henry Emily, the man who tried to build magic for kids and ended up building a prison for ghosts. We're going to break down the crushing guilt that drives him, Survivor's guilt over losing his daughter while his partner's monster of a son kept walking, the inventor's curse of realizing your tech-enabled murders, the question of whether he suspected William and stayed passive, the FNAF 6 ending as basically an elaborate controlled suicide, and the psychology of revenge, burning everything down instead of going to the police. And we're gonna use that hook, the man who built hell to destroy his best friend. We'll lean on the Pizzeria Simulator tapes, the FNAF 3 hidden minigames, and how he's portrayed in the novels. So sit back, relax, and let's dive back into the world of FNAF. First, let's put Henry in the right corner of the universe. Henry is the other half of the original Fazbear Dream, the creative, the builder, the one who made the animatronics actually work. In a lot of tellings, William Afton is the corrupted knife in the story, but Henry is the workshop. We're talking about the era of small locations, wood-paneled stages, basic security, and the early innocent versions of Freddy and the gang. Then tragedy hits. His daughter is lured, taken, killed by one of the very machines he helped bring to life. From that moment on, every Fazbear room Henry touches changes tone. No longer a fun pizzeria, but a carefully designed trap. Think of the FNAF 6 location. It looks like a modest little restaurant, but down below, fire systems, salvaged chairs, a built-in crematorium. That's Henry's stage. Outwardly normal, inwardly Judgment Day. Since we're doing horror lore, let's see him. We don't get a crisp 4K shot of Henry, but the material we do have paints him as measured, tired, deliberate. We can imagine an older man, face-lined, eyes serious, voice calm in the Pizzeria Simulator recordings. Expressionless, but unsettling. Not because he's evil, but because he's carrying decades of regret. No wild movements, no manic Afton energy. He's the quiet one. We can see a workshop coat, maybe oil stains, a man who spent more time at the bench than at the front counter. And by the time of FNAF 6, we can hear the finality. He sounds like someone who has already decided to die. So when do we actually encounter Henry? Mostly at the end of things. We meet him in Pizzeria Simulator when the game reveals itself. When the fun management sim turns into haha, this was a revenge furnace. That's important. Henry doesn't show up to guide you through the nights. He shows up when the plan is complete. That's passive guilt turning into active guilt. He's been watching, letting things get to a point where he can gather everyone. Afton, the possessed animatronics, even his own daughter's spirit, and end it in one clean burn. That's not a moment of rage decision. That's a man who sat with guilt for years. Let's start with the big one. Survivor's guilt. His daughter died. Williams lived. In the FNAF 3 hidden minigames and in the wider lore, we see the story of Charlie, Henry's daughter, being killed outside the pizzeria, lured by an animatronic, and later becoming tied to the puppet. That's Henry's wound. He built a place to delight kids, and his kid died. Meanwhile, William's line, specifically William himself, and in some continuities, his corrupted body as Springtrap, just keeps going. Imagine being Henry and watching the killer's legacy walk around in metal while your child's life is reduced to a mask and a music box. That's textbook Survivor's guilt mixed with injustice. My innocent one died, the guilty one lived. That kind of imbalance drives people to extreme balance the scales plans. Like, say, locking everyone in a building and burning it. The inventor's curse, realizing your tech enabled the murders. Henry isn't just a grieving father. He's an engineer whose creations were weaponized. That's a uniquely awful guilt. I made the thing, therefore I helped. The early FNAF tech, spring-lock suits, autonomous animatronics, security-defeating mascots are all things Henry and Afton were pushing. Afton used that access to lure kids where cameras didn't reach. Even if Henry didn't touch a single child, he made the world in which they could be taken. That's the inventor's curse. The Oppenheimer thing. I made it to help. It was used to hurt. People with that kind of guilt often become hyper-controlling later, trying to design safety through destruction. That's exactly what FNAF 6 is. A final piece of technology whose only purpose is to undo your previous technology. Passive versus active. V guilt. Did he suspect William but do nothing? This is the uncomfortable question the games hint at but never say outright. Henry and William were partners. Henry is smart. Kids start vanishing around your animatronic restaurants, and you don't suspect the guy who's always in the back room with the suit. suits? Come on. So the psychological reading is, Henry probably suspected something was wrong early, but chose not to confront Afton. Maybe because of business, maybe because of friendship, maybe because he didn't want to believe it. That's passive guilt, the guilt of omission. Later, when he knows for sure, he flips to active guilt. I am going to fix this even if it kills me. People do that. They overcorrect. His silence at the start explains the fire at the end. Suicidal ideation. The FNAF 6 ending as an elaborate suicide mission. Let's talk about that speech. To you, trapped in the corridors. To you, the one you should not have killed. Henry talks like a man signing off. He says the building will burn. He makes no provision for himself to escape. He planned a restaurant whose end condition is everyone inside dying. That is not just vengeance. That's self-destruction. Psychologically, that's consistent with long-term unresolved guilt. I let it happen, so I don't deserve to walk away. We don't see Henry running for the exit. We see him narrating the end. That's almost poetic suicide. He built hell, invited the devil, stepped inside, and shut the door. The psychology of revenge, burning everything versus seeking justice. Why didn't Henry just go to the police? Because in FNAF, justice systems don't stop ghosts. Henry isn't just trying to jail William. He's trying to release souls and stop a supernatural loop. That's why fire is his tool. Fire purifies, ends haunting, destroys hardware. From a psychology angle, that's called totalistic revenge. The kind where you don't just want the person punished, you want the entire world that allowed it to burn. He's not just mad at Afton, he's mad at Fazbear, at the building, at the animatronics that trapped his daughter's soul, so he burns the brand. That's not justice. Justice is proportionate. This is annihilation. The man who built hell to destroy his best friend. This is a betrayal story at its core. Henry and William start as collaborators. One of them, William, secretly kills children. The other, Henry, realizes it too late. Betrayal by someone you trusted is psychologically devastating because it makes you doubt your own judgment. How did I not see this? That self-doubt feeds guilt. Henry's answer is, next time I will see it. I will control every variable. That's why the Pizzeria Simulator setup is so tight. Specific animatronics lured, specific ventilation, a pre-recorded speech. He removed the possibility of surprise because surprise is how William got him the first time. Let's walk Henry's story like a mini playthrough so we can see the shift from passive to active guilt. Setup: two guys build a restaurant. Animatronics work, kids are happy. This is the ordinary world. Inciting wound: Henry's daughter is killed using an animatronic, the very symbol of his success. Realization: disappearances keep happening. Patterns emerge. The only one with that access is William. Passive period: Henry doesn't stop Fazbear outright. Maybe he grieves. Maybe he tries to fix puppet tech to protect souls. FNAF 3 minigame vibes. But he doesn't burn it all, yet. Designing the trap, eventually he decides normal justice won't work, so he builds a new location disguised as a normal one, but it's actually a slaughterhouse for ghosts. Final confrontation, he lures in Afton as Springtrap, the possessed animatronics, even his daughter's puppet essence, and burns it. He narrates it like a eulogy. He includes himself in the cleansing, active guilt fulfilled. So what does this all mean for Henry's psychology? The most solid theory is, Henry lives in chronic survivor's guilt and turns it into engineered atonement. He outlived his daughter. He outlived the partnership. He watched the wrong man keep coming back. So he decides his life's final purpose is to erase the evil he failed to stop. That's why his tone in the Pizzeria Simulator tapes is so calm. He's not raging, he's resolved. He's already accepted his punishment. Another fan-friendly reading is that Henry's passive guilt period is what gives rise to all the later hauntings. If he had confronted William after the first death, maybe the remnant experiments wouldn't have happened. Maybe the souls wouldn't have been stuck. So FNAF players sometimes read Henry as tragically complicit. Not bad, but too slow. That makes his later self-immolation make sense. He's not just killing the monsters, he's paying for loose tea time. Let's split what's supported versus what we infer. Supported by Pizzeria Simulator, Henry set up a pizzeria specifically to gather and burn the haunted animatronics in Afton. He speaks like a man saying goodbye. Supported by FNAF 3 minigames, his daughter was killed and became connected to the puppet, which in turn helps free souls. A father trying to fix what was broken. Supported by novel characterization characterization, Henry is portrayed as brilliant, damaged, and haunted by what his partner did using his creations. Inferred, Henry suspected William early but didn't act. Henry intended to die in the fire. Henry's choice of fire is both practical and symbolic revenge. And that's what makes Henry such a powerful figure in FNAF. He's the guilty good guy. William is evil and knows it. Henry is good and knows he failed. That second kind of guilt is heavier. It keeps you up. It makes you build entire death restaurants. Alright, that's gonna do it for the crushing guilt of Henry Emily. A psychological analysis, survivor's guilt over his daughter, the inventor's curse, the shift from passive to active guilt, the FNAF 6, I'm going down with the ship, suicide mission, and the revenge psychology of a man who built hell to destroy his best friend. If you enjoyed this breakdown, remember to leave a like, comment down below with what you want to see next, and of course subscribe to Horror Lorekeeper for more FNAF and horror content. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.